Hello everyone. As some of you know, I make content exploring the games made by Remedy. For this next project, I wanted to get feedback from all of you before proceeding. We have something in the works for the channel that is intended to be a one-stop shop for watching a playthrough of the game. While it will be a full run, we are including a 100% collectible tracker, commentary to point out the important parts including themes, lore, and philosophy brought up in the story. On top of this, we will be collecting evidence in the game world and unpack it at the end in a lecture-style format or study hall. At the end of each chapter, there will be a review in order to figure out what that was all about. This is where you all come in. I've played Alan Wake maybe a dozen times over the last decade, but I am still finding new things and learning new ways of interpreting the story. As such, I wanted to get feedback from everyone, not just for the formatting of the project, but also whether there was something I missed in the game, if there were some other ways to interpret the story, or anything you believe I can do better so that we can include it as much as possible. In the end, I'd like this to be a community project where everyone can share their voice and have a hand in creating it. For the purposes of this beta test, we have only included the nightmare sequence at the start of the game. Please have a look at some of the ideas we have and give me your feedback on how to improve, or if I missed something. This is a work in progress, so feel free to critique any part of it. I truly appreciate all of you and hope we create something awesome.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear. In a horror story, the victim keeps asking why, but there can be no explanation, and there shouldn't be one. The unanswered mystery is what stays with us the longest, and it's what we'll remember in the end. My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer. I've always had a vivid imagination, but this dream unsettled me. It was wild and dark and weird, even by my standards. So yes, it began with a dream. Following a typical nightmare pattern, I was late, desperately trying to reach my destination, a lighthouse. For some urgent reason, I couldn't remember. I'd been driving too fast down a coastal road to get there. I'd seen the hitchhiker too late. He was dead. I was convinced they'd put me in jail and I would never see Alice again. Suddenly, his body was gone. I was in shock from the crash. I could hardly stay on my feet. The radiator had broken when I hit the hitchhiker. The car wasn't going anywhere. I had to go to the lighthouse. I knew there was something important waiting for me there.
From the introduction, we learn that Alan is a writer. The trunk of his car contained over 24 copies of his book, something he could never travel without.
I was certain I had just driven from this direction, but now the road was blocked.
Navigation in a dreamscape can be a lesson in mental flexibility. Pathways appear and vanish. Sites such as this block wall, which should not be built in the middle of a highway, are commonplace and whose logic should be accepted. They are all aspects of the mind and can be interpreted symbolically as well as psychologically. Now that Alan has entered the town of Night Springs, he is trapped there. We don't know why, but our goal is the lighthouse. There is something about the human species that desires the safety of light. something innate in the human experience, in the collective unconscious. The bridge to Night Springs is the most direct route to the light, to safety. The road is a well-worn path.
The bridge had collapsed. I'd have to find another way to the lighthouse.
When the easy path is ripped from him, Alan must set out into the wilds of the nature trail in order to reach his destination. Within the novelization of Alan Wake, the hitchhiker's backstory is more fleshed out. While not 100% canon, it gives us an insight into what his motivation may be. One of the first stories Alan wrote, but never finished, began with a car crash, where a hitchhiker was killed. Because of this, the man died for nothing, and is angry at his creator for giving him life, only to take it.
You don't even recognize me, do you, Ryder? You think you're God? You think you can just make up stuff? Play with people's lives and kill them when you think it adds to the drama? You're in this story now, and I'll make you suffer! You're a joke. There would be a single readable sentence in your books if it wasn't for your editor. You'll never publish another one of your shitty stories, 'cause I'm gonna kill you. It's not like your stories are any good. Not like they have any artistic merit. You're a lousy writer. Cheap thrills and pretentious shit. That's all you're good for. Just look at me. Look at your work.
Unfiltered self-criticism is common in a dream state, whether symbolically or verbally. In this exchange, the hitchhiker becomes the avatar of his negative self-talk. While attempting to chop Alan with an axe, the hitchhiker cuts him with words. These QR codes were added to the Steam version of Alan Wake. This one here linked to the official Alan Wake Facebook page.
You missed your deadline! Damn. You can't stop me!
I realized that the hitchhiker was a character from the story I'd been working on.
Along Alan's path, keep an eye out for the Ravens. They appear to always be one step ahead of where he needs to go.
How does it feel to die by the hands of your opposition?
While not explained in the game, there is reason for Clay Stewart to recognize Alan. This man from Madison, Wisconsin, has been experiencing reoccurring nightmares about Alan every night. Each time, they are trapped in the woods, stalked by an unknown darkness. Sometimes there were shadowy men, sometimes there was a lighthouse, sometimes he died in the nightmare, only to wake up in bed.
It's coming! Inside now! Get inside! Oh no! Stop! No! Damn it, die! No! No! No!
I was trapped. There was no way out.
The books we read tend to influence us in ways we cannot predict. Inside the cabin, there is a book entitled A Conspiracy of Faith. As the darkness surrounds the cabin, the poster gives us hope. The text at the bottom says, "Pinprick of light in an ocean of darkness."
Follow the light. You are hurt. You should go into the light. You are only safe there.
The journey through the rough waters of the unconscious can be dangerous. Safe havens provide an island for Alan to mentally stabilize himself.
Well done. I have something important to tell you. It goes like this. For he did not know that beyond the lake he called home lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been. To its ports I've been. Do you understand?
No.
Follow my light.
Alan does not understand the poem spoken to him, but by the end of his journey, it will finally make sense.
I entered your dream to teach you. The darkness is dangerous. It's sleeping now. When it feels you coming, it will wake up. There's no time. I can only show you the most important thing. Come here. The hitchhiker has been taken over by the dark presence. You can't hurt him now. The darkness protects him from all harm. Only light can drive the darkness away and make him vulnerable again. Here, take the light. Pick up the flashlight.
The most basic tools required to navigate the mind is a method of illuminating what you find there and the means to neutralize the poisons found in the water.
You need light to survive. Turn your flashlight toward him and burn the darkness away. You did it. Now the darkness no longer protects him, but it's still inside, controlling him. He can't be saved. He's still a threat. He is still your enemy. Here, take the gun.
Now you'll die.
Good. You've done well.
darkness was taking over the world. The lighthouse was the last safe place on Earth.
The voice's final lines, "I will give you back your dream now," makes us question whether it is a product of Alan's imaginative mind, like the hitchhiker, or an outside intelligence that can travel through dreams. Even though Alan just killed the possessed hitchhiker, another appears before him. No matter how much we push away regrets, they will always be tattooed on our mind, waiting for a moment to emerge forth.
This is it, Witch!
All we can hope for is to pick up new psychological tools that will help us better deal with negative thoughts.
Just like... I can keep this up forever!
When calm air is made violent, it forms a tornado. It creates catastrophic change within the mindscape until the environment is nearly unrecognizable, almost impossible to traverse. If Alan makes the wrong step, he can fall into the darkness of the waves, unable to return. Within the nightmare scenario that acts as the game's prologue, we are given an insight into the protagonist's mind. The monologue at the beginning informs us that he is a writer, but the rest is encoded in the symbolism and events of the dream. The personal unconscious is a landscape sculpted by memories, traumas, emotions, and other aspects that are unique to us. With this in mind, several things within Alan's mindscape inform us of his mental state before the story begins. By understanding these, his behavior and actions make more sense. The trunk of the car that Alan drives is filled with copies of one of his books. At the head of the nature trail, pinned to one of the notice boards, we learn the title is A Sudden Stop. What this book means to Alan won't be fully revealed until later in the story. At the trailhead, we find a missing poster with his own face on it. It appears that within his own mind, his identity is missing and he is trying to find it again. This may have to do with the words that the hitchhiker uses to lash at him, the internal belief that his own literary works are trash.
Cheap thrills and pretentious shit.
It is easy to feel lost within one's own mind when our own internal critic digs into who we are and belittles our own talents. Most of the time, the hitchhiker is angry at his creator for killing him without any resolution or meaning. Since this is a dream, Alan's imagination is creating this. This implies that Alan has developed such a strong connection with his fictional characters that he develops empathy for them. He literally is having a nightmare tormented by thoughts of remorse for how he wronged an individual who isn't real. The last component that, while it doesn't mean much now, will become one of the most important parts of Alan's story is the setting. Both the road sign and the collapsed bridge inform us that Alan has entered the town of Night Springs. Avatars are physical embodiments of an abstract intelligence, usually gods. But this concept can be applied to aspects of the mind as well. Our psyche is a homogeneous mixture of good, bad, and everything in between. How these components interrelate determine who we are and how we behave. In this scene, Alan's self-criticism pulls away and becomes manifest as an external being. In this context, the hitchhiker becomes an avatar of one of many destructive parts of his mind. Sometimes it is hard to determine what is going on in our head until we consciously pull out one ingredient of the melting pot and examine it. As mentioned earlier, the personal unconscious is sculpted by the individual. As such, this dream should only contain things from Alan's mind. However, twice we get the hint that foreign occupants are making their way into the mindscape. The first is Clay Stewart. As mentioned earlier, he is a man having reoccurring nightmares of Alan trapped in this exact situation. Even though the two had never met and Clay didn't know who Alan was at first, their unconscious minds began to overlap. There are similarities in their independent experiences. In his own words, Clay states, "Someone knocks and I step out onto the porch. There's no one there, but the lantern is broken in what I take to be a very meaningful way. That's how it strikes me." When the hitchhiker appears at the trailhead and begins swinging his axe, a lantern is destroyed as a reflection of Clay's nightmare. It almost feels like a message that they are not allowed the aura of safety this lantern provides. This is until a second foreign body enters his dream. A bright light comes to Wake's rescue just as the darkness is about to consume the cabin. A voice coming from the light gives him information about the light and darkness. This conversation ends with,
"I will give you back your dream now."
The voice seems to know how to enter the unconscious of another to pass along information. The ramifications of this will be explored as the story unfolds. Trapped in the darkness, Alan intuitively understands that the lighthouse is a place of safety. This instinct of human nature can be traced back to the invention of fire. Before this time, the stars and moon were the only things that illuminated the darkness. Wild beasts filled the shadow, creating an innate fear of anything that could not be seen. Fire allowed one to peer into the dark places of the earth. The warmth of this light was safety in more ways than one. The unconscious mind is a similar dark ocean that requires the light of consciousness to plunge the depths of safely. This is why the voice gifts Alan with a flashlight to illuminate what lies in the dark recesses of his mind. How can he confront destructive parts of his psyche if he cannot see? The most direct route to the lighthouse is over the bridge into town. Unfortunately, it has collapsed, sending Alan to the nature trail, the so-called scenic route, to reach the goal. This reminds me of the twists and turns one travels on in a labyrinth. Some turns may take you closer to the center, some further away. The bridge feels like the part of the labyrinth that takes Alan closer to the destination, but that road is taken away. The impatient mind may want to get to the destination as quickly as possible, but if Alan took the easy road, he wouldn't have been confronted by the figures in his nightmare. The confrontation with the hitchhiker, meeting Clay Stewart, or the education from the voice where he is given the basic tools required to navigate his mind, all of these would have been bypassed if the bridge was in good condition. Every individual has their own unique path, symbolized by the labyrinth. Walking along the winding path, we rarely have a direct route to the goal. Every step of the journey, however, is essential. Sometimes that path can take us from the well-paved roads and down into the unknown wilds. The only way to fail the journey through the labyrinth is to either stop walking or turn back.